Hi, this is Dee Dee Jones with Innovative Financial. Thank you for joining us today. We have a special guest, Mike Olson. He's somebody I have known since he was just a pup as a realtor. He's so amazing. It's been my pleasure to see him develop as a professional, but he is going to help us understand the life of a realtor. When you work with a realtor, what's it like? What's it like to be the realtor? We're going to look at it from both sides. And what kind of things should you be asking a realtor when it's time for you to buy or sell a home? Mike, how you doing today?
Good. Thank you so much for having me. This is great. I'm super excited.
Yeah, I know things are so busy for you. You had to actually even do some schedule juggling to make yourself available. So we're really thrilled that you could join us here today. Because tell
Absolutely.
me about the market. It sounds a little busy.
It is. It's a little bit baffling, to be completely honest with you. You know, when we went into COVID, kind of the shutdown, the feeling in the industry was we don't know what's going to happen. A little bit doom and gloom, which I was never fully on board with, but a lot of people, saying foreclosures and all this kind of stuff. And here we are, 5 months later with a market that's even hotter than it was when we went into it. And, people, I think, through a lot of different reasons are realizing that they want to make a change in their housing.
Yeah.
And with that combined with the super low interest rates, we're kind of at a position that is, that is allowing up for a lot of people.
Up. And guess what? You're working from home and you've
I'm
got
working from home. I
little
need to
kids.
apparently make a change in my housing to get a secret door. Okay, go find mom. Sorry about that.
It's going to happen. Hey, we're all in that boat.
Right. I never should have shown myself how to pick locks, apparently.
Oh,
But yeah, so we're in a spot where people are, with money, as you know, being practically free, with interest rates below 3. It's a really good time to be able to kind of maximize the value of their current home and make a change for whatever that looks like.
yeah. So you're in Denver. And so all real estate is local is an old saying I know. Do you have a sense across the country? Are we seeing strong markets pretty well across the country, or is it hot spots?
We are. It really is kind of across the country right now,
Wow.
and we're starting to see more and more little pockets that are starting to slow down, specifically bigger cities. I read an article earlier today about New York City. Their vacancy rates are as high as they've been in, I think, 10 years, and the rents have plummeted 10%. Because people, especially during these times, are kind of fleeing those urban centers to get a little bit more space.
Okay. So any special advice in, hot market, things go quick. So
They
I've got
do.
some friends, they're finishing up redoing their house and they're ready to move to a new one.
Yep.
Do you put your house on sale first? Do you buy the other house first? How do you sequence when things are so quick?
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the biggest things, because really moving is a stressful thing, and being able to avoid a double move where you have to, sell your house, move all your stuff into
I
storage.
did that once.
Yeah,
Never did that.
it's no fun. And so there's a lot of different ways that we can kind of structure the deal, and depending on kind of what segment of the market they're in and what they're trying to go to, there's often opportunities to be able to maximize the value and kind of put the sellers in the driver's seat so that they have time to go out and find their new property. And you have the other thing with this is that as you get higher in the price points, the market is a little bit cooler. So I've got probably 3 or 4 deals right now that are actually contingent on the sale of a lower price home.
Oh,
And the sellers of the higher price home were happy to take that because
okay.
they weren't, the market is just a little bit cooler, and the buyers are typically going to be move up. So it's
So for
it's a
move
good
up
scenario for
folks,
everybody.
go ahead and shop and then put the house on the market.
Yeah,
And
generally I like to do that to kind of have a place to land, and then you can structure the dates so that it's an easy transition.
okay, that makes good sense. Yeah, because that moving twice, like I said, I did it once. I
Yeah,
wouldn't wish that on anyone.
I know. It's really, it's
It was
between
so
having
bad,
your
I
house on
haven't
the
moved in
market.
30 years now. So,
Yeah,
yes,
exactly. It leaves a lasting impression.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, what are some other questions that people are bringing to you in this unusual market? Questions
Yeah,
that maybe you haven't heard before.
probably the most common one is, is it a good idea to make a move right now with kind of the
Yeah,
uncertainty in the world? What I'm finding is that, at least with my clients, I've had very few clients who have lost their job. They've all kind of transitioned to generally a work from home, or they're in an essential industry. And so as long as they have the ability to, to feel secure in
yeah,
their job, then I say, real estate is a long-term investment. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Now she's locking it again.
That's your staff taking good care of
Exactly, exactly. So as long as they're comfortable personally, long term real estate is a great investment. So even if the bottom falls out and we see a little dip, as long as it's a primary residence, they're going to weather that and they're going to be in good shape long term.
Yeah. So what, are you working 80 hours a week these days?
My wife would probably tell you yes. It's one of those things where real estate, I always say it's hurry up and wait. And so when things need to happen quickly, I've kind of got to be available. And then, you submit an offer and then you wait for a day to hear it. And then you've got to make a quick decision. So, there's a lot of work going into it. But at the end of the day, as long as my clients end up in a place that they're happy with, then it's all worth it.
Awesome. Good. You've been doing this a long time. When was it you started in real estate?
Yeah, I actually just had my 10-year anniversary last year. So it started in a very different market and kind of got to see the complete flip from where we were back in 2010.
Well, yeah, 2010 had its own weirdness, but different magnitude, but its own weirdness. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, how did you end up becoming a realtor?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd always been interested in real estate, and as I had a couple jobs out of college, I've got a degree in finance, so I kind of have a good understanding of that aspect of it. And I realized that what I wanted to be doing was working with people on a day-to-day basis, doing something to kind of change their lives. And I realized pretty early on that I wasn't meant to sit in a cubicle for 40 hours and kind of just type away. And so I kind of took a shot and haven't looked back since. So I feel really blessed to be able to do something I love every day.
Along the way, did you have like any financial challenges that you'd love to share and tell us what you dealt with and how it worked out?
Probably honestly was the biggest one that my wife and I had was the kind of roller coaster that happens in real estate, especially when you're new, where you get paid and then it's a month or two until you get paid again. And we actually sat down with you and you said, why don't you set it up this way so that you've got your account and you just pay your joint account every month. And that was huge because it kind of took the stress off of my wife, who's very planning based. Exactly. So that was a huge step for us. And then, really just, in any industry where it's commission based, the first 2 to 3 years are pretty lean. So really learning to manage money well and not give in to the impulse to make a big sale and go and buy a new car or something silly like that, which agents are notorious for doing, as you know.
They are. Yeah. For our listeners, there was a time in my life I was controller for Coldwell Banker Mountain region here and was managing 300 real estate agents. And they come in all shapes, sizes, and temperate, but it's people who can deal with that uncertainty. People like me, CPAs who do planning, aren't the folks that are drawn to real estate. So I have a real appreciation for the attitude and the energy that it takes to do your job well. So I really respect that.
It is. It's certainly not for everybody, but I think that for the right person, it's just a good amount of motivation to keep going when things get tough.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and you've been through several market cycles at this point, so that's probably a good thing to know about an agent. How long have they been doing it? What's their what would you,
absolutely.
Somebody who's not in Denver, who can't hire you, because obviously if they're here, they should hire you. But what kind of things would you recommend that they learn about an agent before they engage them either to buy or sell their home?
Yeah, absolutely. Like you mentioned, just kind of the amount of time that they've been doing it is really big. The support systems that they have in place, and then really kind of the amount of business that they're doing, because what you see is that the markets change even on a weekly and monthly basis. And if you're not doing business with somebody who's out there on a daily basis interacting with the market, it can be really easy to misprice something or to overpay for something because they don't have their finger to the pulse.
Yeah. Any misconceptions for people that are buying and selling right now?
One of the biggest ones is that you still need 20% down in order to buy a home. There's some really good loan products where, you can get something done with 3 to 5% down, and with interest rates where they are, oftentimes I've got clients who are coming from renting to buying and they end up paying less to own a home than they were renting.
That's great, because that helps the economy. I mean, I know the more people we have in houses, they're out spending money at Home Depot. And
yeah, absolutely.
and that just tumbles along and helps all of us, actually.
It does. It does. Yeah. The statistic is, every purchase or sale ends up having like 13 different businesses involved in some, everywhere from Home Depot to the inspector to the appraiser. So it's a big driving factor for the economy.
Well, and that's just at the point of transaction. Once they're there, they help support that community, and there's more stability, et cetera.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So list to price ratio. I have heard some crazy things going on. In fact, most of the transactions I've heard about lately, people are buying at higher than the list price. Am I just hearing outliers, or is that what's going on?
Yeah, especially in what I would call kind of the middle market. In Denver, that's probably right around $500,000, which is kind of crazy. But because that's what you almost need to spend in order to get a nice family-friendly home, for a home that comes out that's a nice home that's priced correctly, you are going to see those multiple offers. And so I made an offer a couple of days ago for some clients. We ended up getting beat out by somebody who paid almost $40,000 more than list, with an appraisal gap coverage of $40,000 as well. So that essentially says if the house doesn't appraise, we'll pay $40,000 more than the appraisal comes in, which is, it's been a little while since we've seen those consistently in this market.
That's incredible. Wow, that's really wild. That makes it hard for buyers, I would think.
It does. And it makes it super important to work with a good lender from the very beginning to make sure that you're fully approved, so that when the agent is talking to your lender, they can say, listen, we've been through underwriting. All we're waiting on is the property. There's not going to be any surprises on that end. So there's some certain things that you can do, but it really requires some legwork to put yourself in the position to be the winning offer.
Yeah, no kidding. So speaking of lenders, what are some red flags to look out for of a lender that might not support you in a market like this?
Yeah, absolutely. I always tell people that I want to work with somebody local who has the potential to get more business if they do an amazing job for me. As a real estate professional, anytime we hear that a buyer is working for one of the bigger banks or one of the national corporations, it scares us a little bit, because those guys are so big that the buyer becomes more of a number to them than an actual face. And so I want a lender working for my clients who they know that they need to get it done, and they need to get it done on time, or it's going to affect that person's life. So I always say, go local and get a couple recommendations to see who you're going to jive with.
Oh, that makes good sense. Yeah, buy local works for a lot of reasons.
Yeah, absolutely.
Helps all of us. Cool. If you had a crystal ball, what are you seeing? And I'm not going to hold you to this, although it's forever on YouTube, but.
I know. Yeah, we'll have to review this in 6 months. But to me, I feel like a lot depends on what the government is going to do in a longer term perspective to help kind of offset some of the effects of COVID. So far, what we've seen is that they've done a really good job of keeping the economy afloat, keeping people employed, and supporting the people who have lost jobs. If and when that stops in the future, I think that we will see some more job losses and probably a softening of the market that's going to make it a little bit easier for buyers. But at the end of the day, it really comes down to the large picture economic things that the government is gonna do, and then how quickly our economy bounces back after all this craziness.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. I that's kind of the answer for everything.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Can we keep this? I think of it like a train. If we let the train slow down too much, it's going to take an awful lot of energy to get it going again. So what things can we do to keep the train going?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll flip that question back to you. What does your crystal ball say?
Well, I actually very similar to yours. That's why I jumped in, because we don't know what the next, really, I'd say 12 to 18 months. Hopefully 18 months out, we'll have whatever new normal is. Don't know what it is, but by then we will have acclimated to whatever changes, and things will be fine. Yeah. So short term, tons of volatility for those people who are invested. Short term, lots more focus on cash flow, so that we have the reserves ready in case you're buying a house, that you have the cash ready to do what you want to do when you want to do it, or whatever else. I actually had some clients who bought a boat. They transitioned into retirement. They're going to live on a boat.
Right.
The prices were depressed because of what's going on. Yay for them. I mean, so great deal.
Yeah.
And we were able to help them do that because we focused on the timing and cash flows. So really, it's like we can, I don't usually predict, but I can predict volatility for a while higher
Right.
than normal. We'll always have it, but it's
Of course.
probably going to be more pronounced just because there's so much more uncertainty.
Yeah.
The funny
And that
thing is,
probably makes it even more important for somebody to work with somebody like you because, when the stock market is just going up, 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 everybody feels like a genius. They're just picking stocks and they're all going up. But when things get a little bit dicey, it kind of becomes apparent that you want somebody who can kind of understand the overall picture.
yeah, and for those of you watching, I paid him to say that. No, just kidding. Yeah, no, I agree. It our professions are similar in that way. Our goal is to help the people we work with make decisions that are going to serve them both now and into the future. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what we do. Yours is focused on likely the very biggest purchase of any family's financial life, and that's
Right.
buying a home. Those are huge. My goal is to help manage that home inside the entire financial life of what's going on. The
Yeah.
home, the mortgage, the other investments, how do you pay for the kids' college? But at the end of the day, we want our clients to be happy and confident about the choices that they've made. Very
Yeah.
simple.
Yeah.
Cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on a scenario. So let's say that I've got a new buyer, they have 20% down, and they can do that on the purchase. So it's going to make their mortgage payment less, obviously, on a monthly basis. Would you advise that they put the full 20% down, or do you think they do less because the interest rates are so low, money's so cheap, and kind of do some other things with those extra funds?
And advisors always start out with the two-word answer, right? It depends.
Right.
But let's talk about what things might influence that. It depends. The first thing I'm going to look at for a family like that is what are their other cash reserves? Because we have so much uncertainty, right now is a time to have a bigger emergency fund rather than smaller
Right.
because of COVID. So if by putting 20% down, they're limiting that emergency fund, then that's probably not a good idea. Okay. Maybe they're heading into retirement. The smaller we can keep a mortgage in retirement, the better for the family.
Right.
It's a smaller nut to cover.
Yeah.
And so it's a lot of trade-offs. Are
Yeah.
you going to be able to use that equity in other ways? Maybe draw against it to pay for your kids to go to school, or drawing against it down the road in terms of turning things into a reverse mortgage and having more equity serves you there. So it's never cut and dried. So
Yeah.
so that's the it depends answer. Now the spreadsheet answer
Yeah.
is, with money so cheap, you should get as much loan as you can and invest the rest.
Right.
That's what spreadsheets will always tell you.
Right.
But that's not always going to be the right answer. Emotionally, people might not be okay with that kind of answer. So that's
Right.
why we want to look and see how that parses out for different folks.
Yeah.
That one size does not fit all.
Yeah.
Although cheap money just is really, and I hate it, that sounds so crass, but mortgage rates are amazing. I did hear where refis are getting an extra $1,100 fee tacked on starting today or tomorrow.
Yeah, yep. With refis, they depending on the kind of the back end, Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, it's either
Yeah.
I think $1,100 or 0.5% of the loan. So those are fairly substantial
That's
increases.
a big change.
It
Yeah.
is. It is absolutely.
And that's going to Freddie Mac. That isn't going to the loan originators and whatnot, is it?
No, it's not. Yeah. So in some cases, the loan originators are going to kind of eating that cost for their clients.
Yeah, that's just a big fat cash grab from right as it stands right this minute, at
Yeah.
least for 60 days as people flow through the system.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
you probably aren't dealing with a lot of folks at a refi point, although I bet
Right.
they.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've got another question for you, if that's okay. So I've got quite a few clients who are kind of using real estate investment properties as a college savings plan for their kids' college. What other strategies do you kind of advise as a most practical for people with young kids?
It depends on, gosh, I hate to start every answer with that. When folks are interested in real estate, I look at real estate, it's a great investment, but it's really a side gig, and not everybody is cut out to have a side gig. And so that's not always the first go-to for the people that I know.
Yeah.
Coming to me, they're more of a delegator anyhow. They're
Right.
looking for help, So the inveterate do-it-yourselfers are the folks you tend to see doing that. So
Right.
we love them. I grew up in a house that had rental properties, so it's near and dear to my heart.
Yeah.
I think having diversification is important,
Mm.
and if you have one rental house, you don't have a lot of diversification. So getting from one rental to maybe a fourplex is a good thing.
Right. Yeah.
But at the same token, adding on layers of tax advantaged savings. 529 plans really, really are powerful if
Okay.
your goal is getting your kids college paid for.
Yeah.
There's really not a better deal around. And there's a lot of strategies around that. People worry that the kids won't need the money. I'm here to
Right.
tell you they probably will. But if you have extra money, there's actually very, very powerful ways that we can keep that money tax protected. Could be you go back to school and get your underwater basket weaving
Right.
degree that you've always wanted.
Yeah.
So that's really the next layer that we want to look at.
Okay.
Another one, especially if you've got a small business like you do, employ your kids, and if they have earned income, they can put money into a Roth IRA.
Oh, okay.
And that money is tax free as it comes out. And if
Yeah.
the kids below the taxability threshold,
Right.
then you've gotten money out of the family business and
Yeah.
into a Roth without paying taxes.
Yeah.
So for a specific slice of the world, employing your kids is amazing. You might say,
Okay.
well, what can my kids do? Well,
Right.
if they're really cute, you can take pictures of them and use them in your promotions and
Right.
pay them modeling fees.
Right.
My kids worked for me and they did shredding and cleaning, janitorial stuff for a lot
Right.
of years. Bless their little hearts. Different people can employ their kids in different ways. The
Yeah.
reason it's powerful, it depends on the structure of the business, but you may not have to pay FICA wages, FICA
Right.
tax on kids. So
Yeah.
if
Okay.
someone
That's a really good hint.
that was a long answer, but yeah,
No,
we
that's
like
perfect.
make it easy, and give people strategies to pay for college, because right now it's
Yeah.
just daunting,
Yeah.
daunting.
It
I went
is.
to you and I look at the cost of that now and go, how on earth does a family do that these days?
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Do you think that, and this is totally off topic, but do you think that the landscape of college universities is going to look drastically different in 15 years?
I was always of the mind, actually, for the last 5 years, thinking that we were going to see some changes.
Mm-hmm.
And, the traditional 4-year college experience is valuable. I mean, I think it creates some really well-rounded people, but the job market doesn't demand it necessarily. There's a lot of ways to get snippets of education and be able to take your career to the next step without having the entire 4 years.
Right.
With COVID and forcing so much education online, I can see it depends on what the job markets and the hiring folks look for, but I could see more trend toward that. So instead of getting a 4-year degree, maybe you get your 2-year general ed.
Yeah.
And companies will go, all right, that's a great start. We'll bring you in, and then we're going to give you some training in software programming or some basic finance or whatever your area is, and do it much more in segments. Now, I don't know if people at the higher ed are thinking that way, but from my armchair, I think that's kind of a brilliant way. That way we don't get people all the way into an art history degree. They get done, they have a huge loan and go, well, now what?
Yeah.
That's really hard. I mean, I think it's a disservice both to the students, the educational organizations providing the studies, as well as the employers. If we can take college in smaller bites, I think it serves society better.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree with you on that. I feel like that's the way it's going to trend.
But part of that's maybe wishful thinking. I wish for parents not to have to worry that their kids will be burdened with 6-digit school loans, because that's stressful too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like my generation and the younger ones who are kind of like not the first, but to come out with those huge numbers of school debt are going to be so adverse to putting their kids in the same situation that.
Right. You and your peers, it breaks my heart because of the juggling you have to do to kind of make your lives look like what normal is,
Right.
Married, you buy the house, you have the kids. Well, when you're carrying around, $100,000 of school loan, or if both of you are professionals, double that. It's really hard to get on that track.
Yeah.
So I don't know how to solve the short term, but I think I have ideas on the long term. If anybody can call me, I'm happy to share.
Right.
Actually, my niece works up at University of Wyoming, and they've
Mhm.
actually incorporated some of these ideas into what they're doing. It's not
Okay.
huge, baby steps, but she works in admissions and in the business department, and it's been really interesting. The other
Yeah.
problem, how do you get kids through in 4 years?
Yeah.
And they've really put, up until recently, the onus on the students.
Yeah.
And so at Wyoming, this was an idea that we proposed, and I'm sure they heard it from other places, but if have a contract that if the student will meet with the counselor 4 times and follow the counselor's advice, that you will guarantee they'll graduate in 4 years.
Right.
Have you ever heard of that before? Because
No.
I have.
No.
Like,
Yeah.
now that is groundbreaking. I think that's
Yeah.
amazing, because that's a way of kind of guaranteeing value, that you're not
Yeah.
going to get hit with that extra semester or year of tuition. So
Yeah.
I hope to see more of that across the
Absolutely.
nation.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
it's one of those rare times that someone asked me,
Right.
we all sit and have great ideas, but there's no
Exactly.
one said, Mike, what do you think? Should we change
Right. I know.
that? Or
I know. I'm not on anybody's call list to help fix the college system. That's for sure.
no? So if you could wave your magic wand, what would you change right now? Anything. Sky's the limit. I didn't warn you about this question, but why not?
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. Man, I mean, can I just make COVID go away? I feel like that would do
Yeah,
all of us.
that's a fine one.
Or maybe just fast forward to 2021 and hope it's better than this year.
Yeah. Yes, it's a dangerous thing to say, how could it be worse? But I suppose there was ways that it could be.
There's always ways.
I'm impressed with the resilience of human beings, though. I mean, we
Yes.
have, as a whole, there's certainly tough spots, but as a whole, given what we've dealt with, I think we've done remarkably well.
I think so too. I think that it, in a perfect world, I think it would really bring everybody together. And I think that in a lot of communities it has. Certainly not in the whole world, because there's different views. But
I think there's so much that, it's local, like real estate.
yeah,
Locally, I think people are good. Even if the guy across the street completely doesn't believe with your politics, the two of you, because you're in it together, have a camaraderie that perhaps didn't exist a year ago. And so that's a good thing.
absolutely.
Revisiting higher education, I think, will be a really good thing as well.
Yeah.
And the unrest about the inequality that has been laid bare by this, if we can take some steps toward resolving some of those issues.
Yeah.
I've always been frustrated as a woman that I deal with stuff, but it just pales isn't strong enough word in comparison to the experience of folks who have other disadvantages, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that, in 5 or 10 years, we're going to look back on COVID and remember it, but also think that it was kind of a catalyst for a lot of needed change that's hopefully going to come to fruition.
Yeah, that's one of our armchair things at the office. Like, what do you think will change?
Yeah.
We tried to guess in February what stocks would do well. Zoom did not make our list. We did think Forex would be a smart one, though. So some things you can kind of guess that are sort of obvious, and other things, they just come out of nowhere.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. And I think that it's kind of showing the resiliency of a lot of businesses too, because the ones that had those cash reserves have been able to kind of thrive during these times. And, it's hard to see, but it's kind of, the strong survive type of scenario.
So much, right. Natural selection shows up, whether we like it or not.
Yeah, absolutely.
We select for the stuff that serves our society as a whole.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So how old are your kids these days?
They are, let's see, they're almost 4 and almost 7. So
okay. So you're
the age to break into my office
right now, aren't you?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. It's they certainly are keeping us busy, and we're anxiously awaiting the decisions on school to see if they can go back in person. And a lot of I feel lucky to have the kids being the age that they are, because they still like being around us. And so that's good.
Knowing you two, I'm sure your kids will always like being around you. I don't think that's ever going to be a problem. You guys are awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Mike, it sounds like you're very hopeful about the real estate market and about being a realtor in general.
I sure am. Yep, absolutely. Like I said, I feel lucky to be able to do something every day that I love, and to be able to help people. I've seen over the span of 10 years the amount of wealth that's been accumulated by clients just by them kind of stepping up and taking a step. So it's been it's a great fulfilling thing for me to be able to do on a daily basis.
Well, we're lucky to know professionals like yourself in such a crazy world that we have.
Well, I appreciate it.
Thanks again for joining us. And for
Absolutely.
viewers, thanks for joining us. We'll have interviews every Friday live on Facebook and YouTube, and other tidbits of knowledge live at noon on Mondays and Wednesdays. Have a good weekend.
Thanks so much, Stevie.
Bye-bye.